Space aliens as an allegory for illegal immigration. Social commentary with a sci-fi twist. We watched Alien Nation. Stay tuned to hear what we thought. Welcome back to Cheers and Jeers, where we review some of the best and worst TV and film of years gone by. Before we get started, please smash that like button as we continue to grow this channel. Subscribe, share this video with your friends. If you enjoy what you hear, it really does help. Now on to our review. We might engage in a few mild spoilers, so be forewarned, but most of these shows are years old, so it's fair game. Alien Nation came out in 1989. It ran for a single season on the Fox network, consisting of a total of 21 episodes. It was filmed in Los Angeles, including a few on-location shots at my personal favorite site, Vasquez Rocks, right outside of the city of Los Angeles. It starred Gary Graham as a detective, and the basic synopsis of the show is as follows. A flying saucer lands in the Mojave Desert in the near future. At the time, near future meant 1995 when the show is set. And the saucer contained roughly 250,000 inhabitants that were an alien species by the name of the Tanktonese. They were bred to be super strong and intelligent slaves. And their ship crash landed there, and they have been in the storyline incorporated somewhat into the population of Los Angeles, with a lot of tensions between the humans and the newcomers, as the Tanktonese have come to be described. One of the aliens goes by the name George Francisco. They all took Americanized names in attempts to assimilate. George is a police detective, and his human partner, Matthew Sykes, who's played by Gary Graham, are a crime-fighting team, and this kind of follows the basic cop-buddy, crime-fighting, episodic premise of a lot of shows, and it works well together. The movie's based off of, or rather the show is based off of a movie that had previously come out by the same name, starring James Caan, and this is the television adaptation. Now the two main characters, Sykes and George, they have some tensions, culture clashes, but they learn to get along, and in the process, the plot delves into a lot of social commentary, and the underlying premise is that the overseers, these were the slave masters on the ship, have kind of melted into the background of society, but are still almost like a crime underground, trying to pull strings to continue to exert their influence. I found that the premise of the show was really interesting and very original at the time. The social commentary with illegal immigration was, although a little bit on the nose, it was very timely to see how they portrayed this alien population trying to integrate into the greater human population in Southern California, and running into problems with bigotry, prejudice, simple cultural barriers. One of the unique things about the story was that these aliens arrived not as conquerors, not with a plan to either take over Earth or even extend a hand of peace. It was an accident. They're not even the leaders of their own civilization. That was something that was echoed years later with the movie District 9, that had a similar premise with a disabled alien ship landing in South Africa, Johannesburg, in that movie, and the aliens on board were largely, you might say, the blue-collar worker class of their civilization, so they weren't they weren't the engineers and scientists of their society, so they weren't even in a position or trained to repair their own technology, most of them. And there's a lot of those same parallels in Alien Nation. The aliens that landed were just average people. They didn't bring with them some grand new insight into the universe or technology to share with humanity. So that made it unique. There were some quirky traits that they wrote into the storyline. For example, they were the Tanctonese species was very susceptible to salt water. It would give them serious burns. It was toxic, and they would get drunk off of sour milk. So that was some of the quirks to the culture clashes that they would encounter. The show was kind of a phenomenon at the time this happened. This aired in an era where people were still watching mainly the network television. Entertainment hadn't splintered into the many different streaming services we have today. So you had a lot of water cooler type events where people were watching the same thing on Thursday night or on Wednesday night, and I forget which night the show aired. But one of the one of the interesting points in the plot was some of the Tanctonese were going to have a child, and it was in their species a 3-person affair as opposed to a 2-person affair. Not to get too much into the weeds there, but basically the husband was the one who ended up pregnant, and the episode that revolved around that, I remember the next morning, all the radio DJs were talking about it. People were talking about it at work and whatnot. And you don't get that anymore with television, unfortunately, because we aren't all watching the same thing at the same time. And I think that's one thing I really miss from the golden age of television, is it was a shared experience, whereas it's very much an individual experience. You watch something compelling or really shocking on TV one night. I mean, you're not going to go to work and your coworkers didn't watch it. I mean, it's a little bit more culturally isolating that way. But one disappointing thing about Alien Nation when it aired was it was canceled after the first season. It ended on a cliffhanger, a rather compelling cliffhanger that really left you wanting to see the resolution. And of course, the network canceled it, and we didn't get that resolution. And as I may have said before in other videos, that is my number one pet peeve that I will hold against the producers and the network of a show. You do not do that. Somebody that writes a book doesn't do that. You don't do that when you do a TV show. You finish the story. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you're going to cancel the show, you make that decision, communicate it to the writers so that they can wrap up their storyline in a tidy manner. That didn't happen. To their credit, they did come back 4 years later with a series of made-for-TV movies that did wrap up the story. So I give them credit for that. It was a long wait for 4 years. In 1994, they came out with the made-for-TV movie Dark Horizon. Followed a year later by Body and Soul. Another year later, Millennium, and The Enemy Within, and ultimately they had one more called The Adara Legacy in 1997. So they did come back and satisfy fans eventually. I would definitely give this show a solid cheers. It was a very original premise for its time. It was a very entertaining and well-written show. I just wish it hadn't been canceled after one season. I think that was not so much to do with the show itself as to do with other financial management problems in the network. But definitely check it out. You can find it on Amazon Prime these days and stream it at your leisure. So what do you think? Did you agree with our opinions on the show? Did we miss anything important that you wanted to add? Let us know in the comments, and as always, please subscribe, like, and share this video. It really does help as we try to grow this channel, And if you have any recommendations for us to review, leave them in the comments as well. So until next time, keep cheering and jeering.